Welcome back. All right, so as promised, I want to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets today, and I was going to talk about them the other day. Talked about St. Louis instead. Blues, Blue Jackets, adjacent. So the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team who have struggled really since their inception to establish themselves as a contending team. They've had some good teams, they've had some solid runs here and there, but a real true contending team, I don't think they've ever been there. And so in the offseason, they have changed both the general manager and the coach with that in mind. And it feels like now they want to actually get to that contending status. At times in their history, it's felt like they're okay with the mediocrity. It's just felt that way, and whether it's true or not, that's how it's looked. So their top nine is fascinating. I was looking at the depth chart on daily face off, and I thought, well, I don't know if that's how it's going to turn out. And it's one of those times I look and I think, well, we'll see. So if you're a Columbus fan, you can let me know your thoughts. But I think Gaudreau, Monahan, and Kent Johnson kind of works. And then Marchenko, Voronkov, Chinakhov. And that line to me, I think, kind of has to be together. Just personally, I would have them together. And then Jenner, Sillinger, Fantilli in any of those combinations. I don't care who's playing center or any of that. I just feel like those three lines could be good scoring lines for a team that has struggled with scoring depth pretty much throughout their existence. So Gaudreau coming off of a season with 12 goals, 48 assists, and 60 points. That is disappointing by any standard. $9.75 million cap hit till 2029 adds to that disappointment. They've added Sean Monahan with the idea of getting Gaudreau going. 26 goals, 33 assists, 59 points for Monahan. He played 83 games combined between Montreal and Winnipeg, and now he makes $5.5 million. At least that's the cap hit until 2029. So that's a lot of money being spent on Gaudreau and Monahan. That's where the offense needs to come from for this team. Kent Johnson's coming off of a down year, 42 games, 6 goals, 10 assists, 16 points. So they need Johnston to take that next step. They need Gaudreau to get back to being Johnny Gaudreau, and they're hoping Monahan's point totals jump back up as well. And of course, you're also hoping for good health for everybody, which can be an issue at times. Marchenko had 23 goals and 42 points in 78 games. Voronkov had 18 goals to go with 34 points overall in 78 games. Chinakhov only played 53 games, had 16 goals and 29 points. These three have good chemistry together. I honestly would be very surprised if they're not together in some way, shape, or form. Whether that's just maybe that's your second unit on the power play. Maybe you have Gaudreau, Monahan, Jenner on that first team. But yeah, you kind of got to put them together, I would think, with the chemistry they showed. Boone Jenner, a bargain at $3.75 million until 2026. Only played 58 games, still managed 22 goals and 35 points. And so it is interesting that he's likely not going to be in the top six since he is such a huge part of that team's identity. Cole Sillinger had a decent bounce back season. I still feel like there's more offense there. He had 13 goals, 32 points overall in 77 games. Fantilli, a good rookie season, 49 games, 12 goals, 15 assists for 27 points. Maybe a bit underwhelming at times, but Fantilli has all the potential in the world to become their number one center at some point soon. Just not yet. But soon, I think Fantilli is going to be the number one center. Then on the blue line, you've got Werenski, who had a nice bounce-back season in that he stayed healthy for the most part. 70 games, 11 goals, 46 assists, 57 points. His cap hit's $9.58 million till 2028. It was a cap hit that looked a bit high at the time it was signed, but honestly, it's aged well. I would think it'll continue to age well. Damon Severson, 67 games, 9 goals, 19 assists, 28 points. His cap hit $6.25 million till 2031. It's a steep cap hit considering he's got till 2031. But again, we'll see how things go from this season. Provorov is on an expiring contract. $4.73 million cap hit this season. 5 goals, 27 assists, 32 points. He played all 82 games this past season. And Juracek, expected to take that next step too. A goal and 9 assists for 10 points in 43 games. Juracek playing well. Then you get to the goaltending. And this is where things get a little dodgy. Merzlikins has had back-to-back down years. 13, 17, and 8 record, .897 save percentage. His cap hit, $5.4 million till 2027, and the reports have been teams don't want that cap hit. They don't want that contract. Tarasov, 8, 11, and 3, .908 save percentage. The one player who's not on the board here is Jet Greaves. if Jet Greaves has a really good preseason and Tarasov plays the way we know he can, does Merzlikins end up down in the minors where Jack Campbell ended up last season, Cal Peterson ended up? Is Merzlikins that next guy on a contract he can't trade to end up in the minors? And again, that contract's till 2027. So it's going to be an interesting preseason with them, and they want wins. So I do think there's a chance that if Greaves plays well and Tarasov plays well, we could see Elvis on waivers. Now, on the way, and I wanted to stick to players who mostly haven't played for them as of yet, Denton Matejchuk. And Matejchuk on the blue line could end up in that top 4 sooner rather than later. I would think Provorov's there for this year, and then Matejchuk jumps into that top 4 next year. There's Corson Coleman's. He's seen as having top 4 upside as well. Stanislav Svozil. So they've got good depth on the blue line in terms of their prospects. Then you got Caden Lindstrom, a center who's unsigned. And him being unsigned wasn't seen as a big deal. Like Columbus was trying to, hire a coach and they weren't worried as much about the contract. We'll see if Lindstrom gets signed. Lindstrom is seen as being that future top 2 center. And they could use that. They need Fantilli and Lindstrom to become those top 2 guys. But for right now, Monahan is in that number 1 spot, I would think. Brindley. Gavin Brindley, right winger. He is seen as a very good prospect for them as well. So Columbus has been acquiring a lot of good prospects. And now it's a matter of improving and getting closer to that playoff spot. So they still have nearly $11 million in cap space, which you have to keep in mind when you talk about potential deals and trades, because one guy who's not in this top 9 is Patrick Laine. Laine is seen as being on the market. And when you look at this top 9 for Columbus, did they really desperately need Laine? I don't think they desperately need Laine at this point. I don't know if there's teams that are looking for that $8.7 million a year contract either, though. So that cap hit's going to make it difficult to move Laine. That cap hit's in effect until 2026. So 2 more years at $8.7 million. And then it's a matter of how much money do the Columbus Blue Jackets retain. So they have 2 buyouts on the records. They don't have any retained slots, according to Puckpedia. And so you can retain 3 different contracts. You can retain portions. That can be in a 3-way deal, where I retain, say, $500,000 of that guy's cap and I get a draft pick for taking that on. Or in this case, it would be I'm retaining, say, 50% on Laine to make that trade more palatable for the team receiving the player. And then maybe they take back a player who's got a $3 million a year type contract, maybe a defenseman, as a for instance. Maybe you find another goaltender, even though Tarasov looks like he's likely ready and Greaves isn't far off. I'm just saying that as an example. So the general manager in place now is Don Waddell. And I think this was a solid signing by Columbus, a team that has had their struggles when it comes to their general managers. But I also feel like I need to include in here, I think Kekalainen, for the most part, did a good job. The last couple of years, I understand why that would lead to his ouster, but I do think he did a decent job. Waddell, that being said, though, did a very good job with Carolina. Yes, there were struggles with Carolina getting over the hump and winning a Stanley Cup, but the fact they made the conference final with him as general manager more than once would tell you why Columbus would be interested in his services, since they've never been to a conference final. So new coach is Dean Evason coming over. He, of course, coached in Minnesota for a portion of last season before losing his job there. I like Evason. And I think what I like with Evason is just he's honest. You know how he feels behind the bench. He lets you know. I think that he's the kind of coach this team needs. And I'm kind of optimistic about what he can do for them. I do think he'll be a good coach for them. And I mean, for Columbus, who've gone through their issues with coaches over the last few years, and we know them well, the reality with Columbus is that they need somebody who's going to have both that firm hand that you need with a coach, but also that understanding of how to work with today's players. And I think Evason's able to do that. So fingers crossed he does well. This past season, they were 25th in goals for, and they were 31st in goals against. So they had trouble scoring. They had trouble keeping the puck out of their net. It was a rough season for Columbus overall. But if you're a Blue Jackets fan, you're probably getting kind of used to it. So the last time they made the playoffs was 2020, where they won the qualifying round. Since then, it's been 4 straight seasons below the 500 mark. And considering you have 3-point games, and it's easier to get to 500 and above 500 than before we had 3-point games, it's all the more damning for Columbus. And it's part of the reason why we have a whole new management structure in Columbus coming into this season. So the additions they made, Jack Johnson, who's going to be third pairing, Dylan Gambrell, who of course is a fourth liner, and Monahan's the big one up front. And again, Monahan here to get Gaudreau back to being Johnny Gaudreau. They have 6 playoff appearances in total. They're going into their 24th season. So anytime that I hear people talking about, well, if we're going to talk about low attendance and teams, if there's a relocation candidate, maybe Columbus. Nope. Columbus still draws, and I find it remarkable that people are filling that building for the most part, despite seeing 6 playoff appearances in the previous 23 seasons, now going into 24, and there are very few who are going to be picking them to be a playoff team this year. So the fact that you're able to get attendance that's not bad with that going on, I think says a lot about the fact that if this team becomes good, Columbus should fill that building. They beat Tampa Bay in 2019. They beat Toronto in 2020. Those are the only series wins they have in their team's history. And they were out quickly after those series wins in 2019 and 2020, respectively. So this is a team that really needs to go on a run. They need to have a good team. I'm pretty sure they've never had home ice advantage ever in a playoff series, despite being in the league for almost a quarter of a century. So this is a team that needs those wins, and I hope they find it. Because again, and I've talked about this, how videos on Columbus don't get a lot of views comparatively speaking with other teams. It's part of the reason why. It's relevance, right? People are going to see this video and go, well, I can skip that because Columbus, they haven't really been relevant, and they're probably not going to be relevant this season either. And so that's going to cause less interest. And for players playing against Columbus, you're not as worried, I would think, because you're like, all right, well, we're against Columbus tonight. Okay, we can go out there, play a good game. We should win it. And then, we'll have a challenge tomorrow night, say, against the Rangers, that kind of thing. Columbus needs to become a team that teams are scared to play against and don't want to play against. So it involves being a little bit tougher in your own end. It involves being, in today's game, you need to have a really good transition game and a lot of speed and consistency. You got to have a consistent team on the ice, which can be helped by having the right guy running things. And so I think Waddell's the right guy to run things this season for Columbus. But let me know your thoughts. What are your expectations for the Columbus Blue Jackets? Do you think this is a team that's going to get back into contention for a playoff spot this year? Can they make the playoffs this year? And will Fantilli and Lindstrom, will we look back at these guys, say, 5 years from now and say that was the start of Columbus getting back to relevance and actually becoming a pretty solid contender in their own right? I would love to see it. I think that it's long overdue that Columbus finds a way into cup contention. Maybe it starts this year with a bit of a climb. Can they get into the playoff hunt? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's August 1st, and the fact people are still clicking on hockey videos, greatly appreciated. The official season previews will be coming soon, and they're a little more in-depth than these videos. These are just kind of fun. So thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.